video, we're going to be talking about some of the signs that you are going through a dark night of the soul. A dark night of the soul is truly one of the most transformative periods in our spiritual awakening journey. Our entire spiritual journey is all about us transforming spiritually. But what I've found is that the dark night of the soul is like this accelerated speed of transformation that we go through, changes that happen very much quickly. Now, the dark night of the soul can be initiated by so many different reasons, and many of us go through very different dark nights of the soul. I know for me, my first dark night of the soul was truly filled with a lot of spiritual depression, and this was like 2 years ago, and it lasted for many years. And I was able to get out of that, and my breakthrough out of that dark night of the soul was truly to be on the spiritual path. And I was filled with so much of bliss and joy, coming out of that dark night of the soul. But the second dark night of the soul is the one where I'm experiencing as we speak, where it's like there's a limited amount of spiritual guidance that is given to you. You are guided to go on a path that you've never gone before, probably the unknown. And what happens is that you feel like, you feel lost and confused because a lot of your spiritual guidance is cut off, and a lot of your intuition as well is not it's not so loud. So in this video, we talk a little bit about some of the signs that you are in the dark night of the soul right now. You're going through the dark night of the soul. So when I think of the dark night of the soul, something that really comes to mind is this allegory that I studied back in university a couple of years ago, which had a lot to do with Plato and Socrates, and it's called the allegory of the cave. I don't know, maybe some of you have heard it, maybe not, but this allegory of the cave is truly I really look at it as a good representation, a good I would say metaphor for going through the dark night of the soul, even our entire spiritual journey. Now, if you are not familiar with this allegory, it's where it's from the Republic, so it's from books that Plato has really published. It's one of the allegories from the Republic, and we have this cave. With this allegory is where we have this cave, and within this cave there are these prisoners. There are these people that are chained to the caves, and they are turned backwards, meaning that they kind of facing the wall, and there's people behind these prisoners that are sort of giving the prisoners a puppet show where they are they kind of just like holding up stuff and showing the prisoners what is a tree and what is this and what is that, sort of trying to condition the prisoner to believe that this is reality, that this is how life is. Now, these prisoners are chained, and what they see on the wall is all these shadows, and they truly believe that that is reality, that that is the truth. So, anyways, one of the prisoners are able to really break free, break out of this cave, and is able to really walk his way out of the cave. And I think that, when it comes to the dark night of the soul, we can truly kind of see that that prisoner walking from ignorance. We can say that the cave really represents ignorance and illusion, and how it is described as Plato is the world of sense, pleasures, and desires, and the world where we truly get sort of imbued with a lot of ignorance of who we think we are. And the puppets, the people behind the whole puppet show thing can be really representative of governments and control and people in power, people who are able to really influence our mind. But this one prisoner is able to really look at the show and see that it's not real, and able to really climb himself out of this cave and into the light, into the place outside of the cave, and he truly sees everything for how it is. He kind of sees reality for how it is. And this is sort of it can really represent this period of enlightenment. It can really represent this period of going through the dark night of the soul, as the prisoner is going from ignorance to higher knowledge, as the prisoner is going from illusion to truth, from darkness to light. we can sort of see that this allegory is really speaking to us about more of like the spiritual path, because as it's described, as Plato says in the Republic, he says that it's a very painful kind of an ascent, you know, kind of a steep hill upwards, an uphill climb towards enlightenment, towards the towards realization, self realization. But what I want to bring your attention to is truly that journey that the prisoner has to go from darkness to light, having to really adjust his eyes, the very painful process. And I really like to really look at that painful process as something like the dark night of the soul, going through something like the dark night of the soul, where we are truly sort of, our ego gets so, you know, it gets so broken down, where we truly get challenged with our beliefs and our conditioning. You know, we really get challenged with who we thought we were and our identities and all the things that we've been conditioned to believe about reality and society. And we truly are able to sort of see beyond that. And so, you know, one of the signs that you're going through the dark night of the soul is like this ego death, where it's like your ego kind of totally deconstruct itself. It kind of just slowly breaks down. It truly depends on, you know, your dark night of the soul. I know for me, it slowly did this over a period of time, where I started to really question who am I and what truly is my identity, because I was truly losing who I thought I was. And that's a truly good sign. When you truly lose your identity, you go through an ego death. This is a great sign, because what it means is that you are able to now uncover who you are beneath that. And so an ego death truly gives way to that. That when you go through an ego death, it can be very frightening. It can be like, it can be totally like you are in darkness, not knowing if you are going to really, you know, get out of whatever this is, feeling lost and confused a lot of time, sometimes being cut off from guidance, or sometimes being plummeted into the unknown, the deep unknown, and having to really pave your way out of that. So another sign that you are going through the dark night of the soul is that life sort of starts to really break down for you. Life is quite interesting in that I find that it can really reflect what's happening within us. And I've gone to this process where I've realized that the changes that I make within myself gets really reflected outside of me. And as your ego is breaking down and you question so much about reality and your perception is changing, so is your outer reflection, so is life. You might find that life starts to sort of break down. Maybe all your safety nets are kind of pulled away from you. You know, the job sort of, you kind of get retrenched in some way, or you know, you just find that there's no resonance towards certain things any longer. You know, however it may be, life really falls apart and truly just kind of just falls away. And that's because, you know, the life that you have been creating all this time has been from a belief that has been unconscious. It's been from conditioning. It's been from an illusion perspective, basically, what you thought the world to be and what you thought reality to be. We've been creating our life from that unconscious place. Well, now it breaks down so that it can really, you know, kind of put itself back together in a much more conscious way, meaning that, you know, the new life that you're going to start building for yourself as you walk out of the dark night of the soul is going to be one of much more alignment and in much more resonance of your true self, that is sort of beneath all of this, or all the identity, all the egoic stuff that's now breaking down. That's something that happened and happened to me, so that's something that you will go through inevitably as you go through the dark night of the soul. You also find that when you go through the dark night of the soul, you sometimes are cut off from your usual spiritual guidance. Maybe you've been someone who have always had contact with your spiritual guide. You've always been someone who you always had your intuition sort of screaming loudly at you. Because of your sensitivity, you were able to sort of, you know, just know the next step and know how to really navigate life based upon your intuition. And now perhaps that's gone, and this is a common thing in the dark night of the soul, where your sort of spiritual guidance leaves. But what I found is that this is quite interesting, because what it does is that it lets you become independent. It lets you sort of rely on your own knowing, your inner knowing of what steps that needs to be taken. And sometimes I like to really remind myself when I'm going through this to just take the next step, make the next right decision, or just take the next right decision, just do that. And how I base this upon is how it feels. So if something really resonates and I know I should do that, I just go in that direction. Sometimes don't even know how to navigate out of the dark night of the soul. A lot of times you sort of have inspired ideas that comes through, and you should take some sort of inspired action. And as you do so, you do make your way out of the dark night of the soul. You do sort of climb your way out of the dark night of the soul. Although your spiritual guidance might be cut off and maybe your intuition is not screaming to you as loudly as it were before, but what I know is that there's always an inner knowing of the next step. Even if you can't see everything, but you do have a perception of the next step. And that's good enough, because once you take that step, the next step comes. And as you do that, you sort of climb your way out of the dark night of the soul. The thing about going through the dark night of the soul is that oftentimes when we are in the dark night of the soul, we experience something like spiritual depression. Spiritual depression can really be those days where we feel really low, feel like low vibe, like our energy is low. We feel not really tapped in and connected to source energy. We feel like life is breaking down, like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what to do. I don't even know the next step or way out of this. We can really fall into this very deep, murky water where we feel like things are just not going the way it should be, or you just feel like low vibe, you just feel so low and so down. And some days you are sort of unable to even just be productive and do the most simplest thing. I know for me, some days when I would feel like, spiritually depressed, those were the days where I could just do the most basic things. Just the most basic things just to get by those days, because they were the most lowest lows that you can ever go within the dark night of the soul. And I've experienced that many times in the dark night of the soul. So spiritual depression is something that you will feel a lot when you are in the dark night of the soul. So I believe that the dark night of the soul is truly there to help us purge out and to really release and let go of all that we've been really suppressing within ourselves, to help us really look at our shadow self, which is the unconscious aspect of ourselves, the things that we've pushed down, the things that we have not really dealt with, the things that we've repressed. So it all comes up to the surface in the dark night of the soul. What I found is that the energy can be quite intense, and it can really pull up to the surface all that we have really suppressed over a number of years, or whatever it may be. You just feel like the things that you may have not resolved in the past, they all come back for you to sort of deal, purge, feel, let go, and release. And by releasing all of this, there's a lot of transformation that happens. The dark night of the soul, I would say, is the period where you go from being the caterpillar to the butterfly. It's that period of transformation. And I feel like dark nights of the soul, they come in to bring us closer to our truth. They come in to bring us closer to who we truly are beneath the shadow, beneath the unconsciousness, to really awaken more of our awareness and our own consciousness. So what happens is that when we are able to truly purge out and let go and release all of the unconscious parts of ourselves, all of the unconscious parts of what we have really suppressed over years within our subconscious mind, we are able to sort of see beneath that who we truly are. And we're able to really transform our life because of that energy coming up to the surface to be released. We are able to sort of come into alignment with who we truly are. So what I found is that it is this period of intense transformation where you sort of change everything. And when you come out of the dark night of the soul, oftentimes you come out very much transformed. And the first phase of the dark night of the soul can be very dark, but it is towards the middle and the end where you find that you truly are able to climb out of the dark night of the soul. And you also, as you do this, there's a lot of transformation that happens to yourself and within your environment. And this is so interesting because when we are able to let go and release, finally release all that we've held within ourselves, we're able to then, move forward in our journey, in our spiritual journey. So that's what I have for you today. I do believe that dark nights of the soul, they truly help us get closer to enlightenment and self-realization. As I mentioned, the allegory, able to we come out of it oftentimes with new profound awareness of who we are and what reality truly is. We come out of the dark night of the soul more enlightened and self-realized. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video was of service to you in some way. This video is quite long. I think it's the longest video I've ever recorded. So anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you so much for receiving today. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.